It weighs 10 kilograms, like a large house cat, but it, and only it, was entered into the Guinness Book of Records as the most fearless creature on Earth. Not a lion, not a bear, not a shark. A 10-kilogram little beast that literally does not care whether there is a lion in front of it or a cobra. It can be bitten by one of the most venomous snakes in the world, fall unconscious, then wake up 2 hours later and calmly finish eating that snake. Its skin is not pierced by arrows, machetes, or the teeth of most predators. It tears open beehives with its bare paws, while bees sting it hundreds of times. And it does not care. It attacks creatures 5, 10, 20 times larger than itself, and most often walks away on its own. It is called the honey badger. And today we will break down, piece by piece, how nature managed to create such a creature. Not just brave, but literally programmed not to know fear. What is inside it? How does its mother raise it? Why does venom barely affect it? And what animal on the planet is the only one that the honey badger still prefers to avoid? Make yourself comfortable, this will be interesting. Let's begin with the main question. How is it even possible that a 10-kilogram animal regularly comes out victorious in fights with creatures several times larger than itself? The answer lies literally under the skin. The honey badger's skin is not just a covering, it is armor. On its back, it reaches 6 millimeters in thickness. Imagine a piece of dense rubber wrapped around the whole body. This skin is so tough and strong that arrows, spears, and the teeth of most predators simply cannot pierce it. There are documented cases when snake bites physically could not inject venom. The fangs simply did not pass through such armor. But the most interesting thing is not the thickness, but how the skin sits on the body. It is attached to the muscles very weakly and literally sits loose, like a baggy jacket. If a predator grabs a honey badger by the scruff, the honey badger can turn around inside its own skin and bite the attacker straight on the nose, straight in the face. It is being held, and it turns around and attacks. Try holding something like that. When I first learned this, I reread it several times because it sounds like something from science fiction. But no, this is real physiology. Add one more detail to this. The honey badger's skin is so elastic that even a machete strike does not cut through it completely, but literally absorbs it, wrapping around the blade. This is not a metaphor. These are exactly the kinds of cases described by people who try to drive a honey badger away using cold weapons. The honey badger's claws are the next element of this fighting machine. On the front paws, they reach 4 to 5 centimeters. These are not claws, this is a personal excavator. In a few minutes, a honey badger digs a burrow 1 to 1.5 meters deep in hard ground. It literally dissolves into the earth if it needs to hide, or reach prey that has buried itself underground. During one hunting trip, a honey badger can dig up to 5 burrows in search of food. By the way, the honey badger's ears are almost invisible from the outside, specifically so that soil does not get inside while digging. It is interesting to compare its claws with a bear's claws. The average weight of a brown bear is more than 100 kilograms, and the claw length is about 3 centimeters. The honey badger weighs 9 to 10 kilograms, and its claws are 3.5 to 5 centimeters long. Proportionally, it is as if an ordinary person had hands the size of kitchen knives. The honey badger's jaws are a separate story. Its teeth, especially the root system, are adapted for one task: gnawing and crushing. Not cutting, but specifically crushing. A turtle shell, the bones of large animals, the hard chitin of insects. The honey badger gnaws through all of this without much effort. A hungry honey badger opens a turtle shell as confidently as we open a tin can. Put all this together: invulnerable skin that sits like a sack and allows it to turn around inside a grip, excavator claws, crushing jaws, and you get a creature that is practically impossible to kill quickly in a fight. Predators that did manage to overpower a honey badger often simply abandoned the body because the effort spent was not worth the prey. The next time, they preferred to avoid it. Outwardly, the honey badger looks modest. Its height at the shoulder is about 28 centimeters, body length up to 77 centimeters plus the tail. Short, powerful legs, a low-set body. The coloring is classic: coal black underneath, a wide silver-white stripe on top, from head to tail. This stripe is not camouflage, it is a warning. In nature, Such bright contrasting coloration means one thing: I am dangerous, stay away. Scientists call this aposematism, warning coloration. The honey badger literally walks around with a "do not touch" sign. There are 12 subspecies of honey badger in total. The rarest are completely black, melanistic individuals. They are found mainly in the forest regions of Central Africa and look like something truly infernal. A black beast that does not care. Its sense of smell, meanwhile, is phenomenal. A honey badger can smell beetle larvae buried half a meter underground. Its weak eyesight hardly bothers it. Its nose replaces everything. In night conditions, in thick grass, in a dusty burrow, it navigates flawlessly. This animal is built as if nature specifically assembled tools for one purpose: to make it unbeatable. Have you ever seen honey badgers live? In a zoo, or at least in a close-up video? Write in the comments. I wonder what your first impression was. But armor is only half the story. Because even if something deadly does manage to penetrate the honey badger's skin, it most likely will not kill it either. And this is where the real biochemistry begins. The honey badger hunts cobras, mambas, and vipers. Snakes whose venom can kill an adult human in a matter of hours, or even minutes. And it does not simply not fear them. It hunts them deliberately, preferring venomous snakes to ordinary ones. Why? Scientists found the answer at the molecular level. In the honey badger's body, a mutation occurred in nicotinic acetylcholine receptors, the very receptors affected by neurotoxin, the main active substance in cobra venom. In most animals, this toxin blocks the transmission of nerve signals and causes paralysis and death. In the honey badger, the receptors are altered in such a way that the neurotoxin simply cannot attach to them. It passes through without causing almost any harm. This is the same mutation found in mongooses and some species of snakes. But in the honey badger, it is combined with the rest of its arsenal, making it truly unique. But this is an important point. The immunity is not absolute. If enough venom still gets into the bloodstream, the honey badger feels it. It can lose consciousness and collapse right in the middle of a hunt. That is why videos where a honey badger fights a cobra and then suddenly falls down as if dead are not actually the end of the story. An hour or two passes, and the honey badger gets up, shakes itself off, and finishes eating the cobra. Personally, this amazes me most of all. Not that it does not die from venom, but that it wakes up and continues from the exact place where it stopped, as if it had simply taken a nap. This immunity is not innate in the full sense of the word. More precisely, there is a genetic basis, but it has to be developed. That is why honey badger mothers deliberately expose their cubs from an early age to contact with increasingly stronger venoms. First scorpions, then smaller snakes, then serious opponents. This is a literal vaccination through experience. We will talk about this in more detail when we get to the section about the honey badger's childhood. The honey badger's hunting pattern against a venomous snake has been worked out to the point of automatism. It does not charge straight ahead. It provokes and exhausts. It attacks from the side, delivers a lightning-fast bite, and immediately moves to the other side. The snake is forced to constantly turn around. This dance can last several hours, but the ending is almost always the same. The honey badger wins, receives a dose of venom, collapses, wakes up, and has dinner. Besides snakes, the honey badger has another chemical defense that is most often forgotten. Its anal glands produce a secretion with such a sharp smell that eyewitnesses describe it as capable of literally paralyzing nearby insects. The honey badger uses this smell to mark territory and as a weapon in a fight. Not the most elegant solution, but effective. There is another little-known detail about the honey badger's immunity. Scientists have found that its resistance to venom is not its only biochemical feature. Its body also tolerates bee stings much better than most mammals. When a honey badger tears open a hive, and it does this regularly and gladly, bees sting it hundreds of times in a row. It simply keeps eating. The stings get stuck in the skin, but only a few make it through the thick layer to sensitive tissue. The few stings that do cause discomfort still do not stop the honey badger. Honey is worth it. Speaking of honey, that is exactly what gave the honey badger its name. The Latin name of this animal, Mellivora capensis, literally translates as the one that eats honey from the Cape Province. That is, in meaning from the Cape of Good Hope, where the first specimen was described. But as we will see further, honey is only one line in its astonishing menu. It has armor, it has immunity to venom. It would seem that this is already enough to survive in the wild. But the honey badger went further, because it also has a head that works, and works very well. The honey badger is considered one of the smartest animals on the planet relative to its size. It can not only learn from experience, it can use tools, and not in the simple sense of picked up a stick and poked something, but in the sense of planning. It assesses the task, finds a suitable object, and applies it meaningfully. The most famous example is a honey badger named Stoffel from a rehabilitation center in South Africa. His story became legendary. Stoffel was placed in an enclosure with high walls. He did not just escape, he solved engineering problems. First, he found a large branch, placed it against the wall, and used it as a ladder. The staff removed the branch. Then Stoffel began collecting stones, piling them up against the wall and climbing over them. The stones were removed. Stoffel began making balls out of soil and using them as steps. When that stopped working too, he found another way out and simply dug a tunnel under the concrete foundation. Over several years of observation, the center staff counted dozens of such episodes. Stoffel was not simply reacting to obstacles. He analyzed what exactly was in the way and looked for a workaround. This is called cause and effect thinking. This level of cognitive ability is recorded in primates, corvid birds, dolphins, and the honey badger. Observers in the wild described honey badgers using logs to reach kingfisher nests and rolling heavy objects to get over obstacles. These are not random coincidences. This is conscious use of objects in the environment as tools. I think this is exactly why the honey badger annoys its opponents so much. Not only is it impossible to bite, it also understands what you are doing and comes up with a way to counter it. That is a completely different level of threat. The honey badger's intelligence also shows in hunting. It has been observed blowing into a burrow, listening to the movement of prey underground, and only then starting to dig in exactly the right place. It has been seen deliberately throwing soil to the sides while digging, attracting birds, and then trying to catch them as well. By accident? Hardly. The honey badger's voice is also informative. A hoarse crackling sound when it is excited or warning. A loud, piercing scream when it attacks or is in danger. These are not just sounds. This is communication that helps it control the situation even through sound. The honey badger was entered into the Guinness Book of Records specifically for its combination of fearlessness and calculated tactics. It does not simply throw itself at everyone indiscriminately. It behaves like a calculating fighter. It evaluates the opponent, chooses the angle of attack, and uses its physical advantages consciously. Its fighting philosophy is simple. The best defense is a ferocious offense, and it follows this consistently. The honey badger's memory deserves separate mention. It remembers routes, places where it found food, entrances to other animals' burrows, and the locations of hives. Within its huge territory, and in males it can reach 500 square kilometers, the honey badger navigates as if by a map. It does not wander at random. It patrols known points along a precise route. All this combined, intelligence, memory, tactical thinking, ability to use tools, makes the honey badger not just a strong animal, but a truly dangerous opponent. You cannot defeat it by strength. It is impossible to scare and extremely difficult to outsmart. Since we started talking about honey, let's break down what the honey badger actually eats, because its menu is a separate work of art. The honey badger is omnivorous, but that word does not convey the scale. More than 60 species of animals and plants have been recorded in its diet. It eats everything that moves and much of what does not move. Rodents, lizards, frogs, turtles, birds and their eggs, young crocodiles, scorpions, centipedes, termites, wild fruits, plant roots. If food is really bad, berries will do. If it is lucky, the young of an antelope or a water buck. There are recorded cases when a pair of honey badgers jointly attacked animals significantly larger than themselves, specifically targeting vulnerable spots. This is not just hunting, this is team tactics. But the main delicacy is honey. And for honey, the honey badger is ready to do anything. Here works one of the most amazing alliances in nature. In Africa, there is a bird called the honey guide. It finds wild beehives, but it cannot open them itself. It lacks the strength. Then it makes special sounds that attract the honey badger and flies ahead, periodically stopping and checking whether it is following. The honey badger follows, reaches the hive, breaks it open with its claws and jaws, eats the honey and larvae. The honey guide gets its share of wax and leftover larvae. This is a real symbiosis, a mutually beneficial partnership between two completely different creatures. Scientists have been studying it for decades. True, the honey badger does not always agree to follow the bird. If its nose has already smelled something interesting nearby, it can ignore the bird's signals. Mutually beneficial, but on its own terms. Sounds like a honey badger. When the honey badger reaches a hive, the bees, of course, attack. Thousands of stinging insects. The honey badger eats, paying no attention. The stings get stuck in the thick skin. Some hit more sensitive places, around the eyes, in the nose. The honey badger grimaces, shakes itself off and keeps eating. Honey is worth it. Now about snakes, because it is snake hunting that made the honey badger a legend. It does not simply tolerate venomous snakes. It prefers them. Cobras, mambas, vipers. These are not threats, they are lunch. And lunch that must be earned in an honest fight. The honey badger's snake hunting tactics have been honed by evolution. It never takes a snake head-on, always attacks from the side, makes a lightning-fast bite, and immediately backs away. The snake does not have time to react. It is forced to constantly turn around. The honey badger exhausts it, gradually inflicting damage. When the snake weakens, the honey badger delivers the decisive bite to the head. If the honey badger receives a dose of venom in the process, it endures it, as we already know. Falls asleep, wakes up, continues. For most predators, a venomous snake is a deadly threat or prey better left alone. For the honey badger, it is just dinner with some inconveniences. Scorpions are a separate item on the menu. The honey badger eats them along with the venomous stinger. It methodically bites off the stinger first, neutralizes the weapon, and only then begins the meal. This is not an accident. It is a deliberate sequence of actions. It is worth adding that the honey badger does not disdain carrion either. If there is no fresh prey, it will eat what it finds. This is not weakness of character, but the highest form of pragmatism. The one who survives is the one who knows how to use any resources, and the honey badger knows how. It also catches fish. If the body of water is shallow, fish can be taken with a paw or nose. It actually swims quite well. No wonder its closest relatives include otters. Water is not an obstacle for it. In general, if you want to feed a honey badger, offer it anything. It will most likely agree, or refuse and attack you, depends on its mood. Turtles deserve separate mention. A turtle shell is an evolutionary defense that saves it from most predators. Eagles drop turtles from a height to break them open. Other predators simply avoid them. The honey badger sits down next to one, bites into the shell with its crushing teeth, and methodically opens it like a tin can. The turtle does not even have time to understand what is happening. Would you risk eating a scorpion? Write in the comments what you think about this animal. I am very interested in how you perceive it. Now let's talk about how a honey badger is born and how one of the most formidable creatures on the planet grows from a blind, helpless cub. Because honey badgers are not born, they are made. And behind that stands the colossal work of the mother. Honey badgers reproduce without a strict season. Unlike many other animals, they can produce offspring at any favorable time. Although in the Kalahari region, most births still occur from September to October. After several days of courtship and mating, the male leaves forever. No participation in raising the offspring. Everything falls on the mother. Pregnancy lasts from 6 to 8 months. Usually one cub is born, more rarely two. They are born blind, almost hairless, completely helpless. Their characteristic black and white coloration has not yet formed. The eyes open after about 2 months. It would seem hard to imagine a more vulnerable creature, but after just a few months, this cub will be fighting scorpions, and after a year, hunting snakes. How does this happen? Thanks to the fact that the mother is not just a source of food, she is a trainer, a survival instructor, and she has a Spartan program. The first thing the mother teaches the cub is never to turn its back on danger. It is allowed to retreat, but only facing the threat. This is the honey badger's signature maneuver, a slow retreat with constant lunges toward the opponent. Turning your back means death. The cub learns this literally from its first outings. Second, how to use the anal glands, a sharp smell as the final warning before an attack, or as a way to disorient an opponent in a fight. Third, and this is the most important, how to deal with venom. The mother deliberately exposes the cub to contact with increasingly stronger venomous creatures. First, small scorpions. Their venom is painful but not lethal. The cub gets stung, endures the pain, continues the hunt. Gradually, the doses and strength of the venom increase. By the time the young honey badger meets its first cobra, its body has already gone through many months of chemical preparation. This is not cruelty. This is the only way to survive in an environment where venomous snakes make up a significant part of the diet. The cub stays with its mother from 14 to 18 months, unusually long for an animal of this size. This is the longest period of shared life in the entire mustelid family. All this time, the mother teaches it how to dig, how to attack a snake from the side, how to open hives, how to climb trees. The honey badger is not a bad climber. It climbs trees in search of chicks or to steal prey from a leopard that has hidden it in the branches. I remember reading about one documented case. A honey badger mother noticed that her cub had accidentally fallen behind and ended up in an open area near a herd of zebras. Zebras could easily have trampled the little one. The mother immediately rushed at the zebras, creatures several times larger than herself, and drove them away. Then she took the cub by the scruff and carried it to a safe place. This is not instinct in the simple sense of the word. This is a conscious assessment of danger and immediate action. If the mother dies while the cub has not yet reached independence, its chances of survival are very low. Without training, the honey badger technically grows up, but it does not become a fully capable hunter. That is exactly why the maternal period is so long. This is not tenderness. This is an investment in the survival of the species. In the wild, honey badgers live about 7 to 8 years. A harsh environment, constant fights, risk, all this shortens life. But in captivity, where there are no predators and veterinary care exists, honey badgers live up to 24 to 26 years. This is a huge difference and a very telling illustration of how brutal the environment they exist in really is. It is worth adding that despite all the honey badger's ferocity, its maternal instinct is one of the strongest among predators. The female never abandons her cub in danger. Documentary observations record the same thing again and again. A threat to the baby, and the mother attacks regardless of the opponent's size. Leopards, packs of hyenas, even people. It does not matter where the honey badger lives and how exactly it organizes its life in the wild. The honey badger's range is enormous. Most of Africa south of the Sahara, the Arabian Peninsula, Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Nepal. This is not one ecosystem, but dozens of different climate zones. Savannas, dense forests, steppes, semi-deserts, mountain regions up to 4,000 meters above sea level. The honey badger lives anywhere there is food and the possibility of digging a burrow. The honey badger is a convinced loner. Encounters with its own kind happen only for reproduction. The rest of the time, each honey badger exists in its own huge individual space. In males, it can reach 500 square kilometers. That is roughly the territory of a small Russian district. In females, it is smaller but still impressive. Within this territory, the honey badger has dozens of temporary shelters, abandoned burrows, crevices, termite mounds. It rarely spends the night in the same place twice in a row. This is not absent-mindedness, it is strategy. The unpredictability of routes makes it less vulnerable to predators that could ambush it near a permanent burrow. A honey badger most often digs its burrow itself, from 1 to 3 meters deep, with a spacious nesting chamber. But without any remorse, it can occupy ready-made housing. An aardvark burrow, a warthog burrow, or a termite mound. Evicting the previous owner is not a problem. The honey badger's activity depends on climate. In hot regions, it is nocturnal, hiding from the heat during the day. In cooler mountain regions, it can come out during the day as well. The exception is a female with cubs. She arranges a permanent den and keeps to a more predictable routine. The honey badger marks its huge space with the secretion of its anal glands. The smell of this secretion is so sharp that other honey badgers can unmistakably read information about the owner, its sex, age, and condition. This is a communication system that allows solitary animals to avoid unwanted encounters and regulate population density in an area. Despite their huge individual ranges, honey badgers are not territorial in the sense that they do not enter deadly fights over land. If there is enough space for two, they simply avoid each other. Conflicts happen, but honey badgers prefer to spend energy on hunting, not on settling accounts with their own kind. A female with cubs is the only example of a stable social unit among honey badgers. The entire rest of the species exists in solo navigation mode. No packs, no hierarchies, no alliances. Everyone is on their own, and everyone is quite satisfied with that state of affairs. An interesting detail about burrows: a honey badger can dig itself a temporary shelter literally in a few minutes if it senses a threat. It simply goes underground and that is it. Getting it out of there is practically impossible. This is an additional level of safety for an animal that is already almost invulnerable. If a honey badger occupies someone else's burrow, the previous owner usually does not argue. Warthogs and aardvarks, at the sight of a honey badger, prefer to urgently find other housing. Reputation works better than any negotiations. And now we have reached the reason most people learned about the honey badger at all: its fights. Because the honey badger fights regularly, willingly, and almost always with creatures larger than itself. But first, about tactics. The honey badger does not throw itself at everything blindly in rage. It has a system. Rule number 1. Never turn your back on the opponent. The honey badger can retreat, but only facing the threat, constantly making lunges toward the pursuer. This confuses even experienced predators. They do not understand whether this animal is running away or attacking. Rule number 2. Attack first if the situation is unclear. The honey badger does not wait until it is touched. If it senses a threat, it launches an attack. This discourages opponents that are used to prey running away. Rule number 3. Aim for vulnerable spots. In a fight, the honey badger goes for the face, the nose, the groin, places where the skin is thin and there are many pain points. One honey badger bite to the nose, and even a big cat starts to doubt whether it is worth continuing. Hyenas. The honey badger regularly encounters them in the savanna. They compete for the same resources. One hyena against a honey badger. The hyena usually loses or leaves. 3 hyenas against 1 honey badger. The honey badger attacks them one by one, not allowing them to concentrate. In the end, the hyenas lose interest. A pair of honey badgers against a pack of hyenas. The hyenas leave. Wild dogs. A pack of African wild dogs is a serious threat to most animals their size. The honey badger, seeing a pack, does not run. It slowly retreats backward, attacking every dog that comes too close. In the end, the pack loses enthusiasm and leaves. Leopards. This is where it gets more interesting. A leopard is physically capable of killing a honey badger and sometimes does. But the price of victory is high. Deep wounds on the face, claws in the side, bites in sensitive places. After such a hunt, the leopard will not want to deal with a honey badger again for a long time. Observers recorded cases where a leopard killed a honey badger and simply abandoned the body because it could not eat it. Too tough skin, too much effort. Lions. The honey badger handles a lone young lion confidently. Against a pride of adult females, it is much more difficult. There are documented cases where 2 honey badgers against 6 lions. The pride eventually retreated, but with serious injuries. There are also documented cases of honey badgers dying to lions. But even when losing, the honey badger managed to inflict so much damage that the winner clearly did not feel like a winner. Crocodile. One of the most surprising documented episodes. A honey badger attacks a crocodile, grabs it by the tail, and drags it. The crocodile is significantly larger. The fight ends with the honey badger simply losing interest in it. The prey turned out to be too troublesome. But the very fact that the honey badger attacked a crocodile at all says a lot. And now about the only animal the honey badger fears. It is the warthog, an African pig with frightening tusks, aggressive and unpredictable. What exactly in the warthog frightens the honey badger? Scientists have not fully figured it out. Perhaps it is the tusks, which can inflict very serious injuries to the belly, the honey badger's only relatively vulnerable place. Perhaps it is the overall unpredictability of its behavior. One way or another, when meeting a warthog, the honey badger prefers to leave. Even the most fearless animal on the planet has its point of common sense. It is interesting to watch how other animals react to the honey badger over time. Young predators encountering it for the first time often try to attack. Experienced adult individuals simply avoid it. The honey badger's reputation in the wild works like an insurance policy. Most predators know the game is not worth the candle. This, by the way, explains its fearlessness from an evolutionary point of view. A honey badger that does not run is a honey badger that does not waste energy on useless escape and does not provoke a predator's chase instinct. Standing and meeting the threat face-to-face is not recklessness. It is the optimal strategy for a creature with its physiology. The honey badger existed for millions of years before the internet learned about it. But it was the internet that made it truly famous. It all began with one video filmed in the wild and posted in the early 2000s. In it, a honey badger fights lions, crocodiles, cobras, and comes out victorious. The video spread across the entire web with the same comment: "The honey badger does not care. It just keeps going forward, doing its thing. It does not give a damn about the size of the opponent." This phrase, "the honey badger does not care," became a meme, a symbol of reckless self-confidence. The honey badger turned into an icon of internet culture, appeared in advertisements, anime, computer games. Hundreds of millions of views around the world. In real life, human relationships with the honey badger are much more prosaic. For farmers and beekeepers in Africa and Asia, the honey badger is a real problem. Its intelligence and physical strength make it an ideal saboteur. Modern beehives are simply an interesting puzzle for it. It destroys chicken coops completely at night, and traditional fences do not stop it. It either digs a tunnel under them or finds a weak point and breaks it. Direct encounters between a honey badger and a human are rare and happen only when the animal is cornered. But in such a situation, the honey badger fights with the same ferocity as against a lion. Several documented attacks on people all occurred in situations where a person deliberately or accidentally blocked the way out. It is precisely because of conflicts with farms that honey badgers are persecuted and poisoned in many regions, plus poaching. Honey badger body parts are used in traditional African medicine and for ceremonial clothing. The International Union for Conservation of Nature has given the honey badger the status of least concern, meaning the species as a whole is not threatened. The population is stable, the range is huge, but in some regions the numbers are declining. Urbanization destroys vast individual territories. Roads become deadly traps for an animal that patrols hundreds of square kilometers. Poisoned baits set out against other pests kill honey badgers indiscriminately. The good news: more and more organizations are working to find a balance between protecting livestock and preserving the honey badger. Special hives with reinforced frames, electric fencing, strengthened chicken coops with concrete foundations. This works. The honey badger is smart, but humans are too. It is important to understand that the honey badger is not just an interesting animal. It plays a specific role in the ecosystem, controlling populations of rodents and venomous snakes in the areas where it lives. Remove the honey badger and the balance will be disrupted. Its story is a story about the fact that real strength is not in size, that evolution sometimes creates creatures so perfectly suited to their niche that for millions of years it cannot improve them, only preserve them. The honey badger has changed almost not at all for several million years. Why change if it already works perfectly? Thank you for watching. The honey badger is not just an animal, it is a principle. The principle that size does not decide the outcome, that the right physiology, the right tactics, and absolute self-confidence can rewrite any rules. Nature created it once and did not change anything afterward, because there was nothing to change. See you next time.